Hi, I'm Greg LeBlanc, and I'm here at the Haas School of Business with Stacia Garr, who is the co-founder of RedThread Research. Welcome, Stacia.
Thank you.
So, Stacia, you've spent a big chunk of your life in HR consulting, workforce consulting, talent management consulting. What are some of the things that people are deeply concerned about now in this space?
Yeah. A number of things come to mind. As we all know, that there's some major shifts in terms of the technology that's available and the potential displacement or augmentation that's going to make on our workforces today. And I think there's two things that we're seeing. One is a question of how organizations themselves should respond in terms of their workers. There's a lot of talk about all the jobs are going to go away, which is probably not going to happen. But it's also not going to be true that there's going to be no impact. And so the question is, how should an organization be preparing its workforce themselves? And then secondarily, what should HR be doing to think differently about using the different tools and technologies that are available? So that's one big change that we're seeing.
So on that note, do you think that companies are going to have to invest more in talent acquisition or talent learning and development?
I think it's going to be a combination of the two. You're not going to be able to buy your way out of this because the skills that we're going to need in the future are fundamentally, in many respects, going to be different. But you can't just acquire those skills from, for instance, younger workers coming in for a whole host of reasons. But you also need to have a plan for retraining people on, one, either just using tools that will help them augment in their current approach, or fundamentally people who may not have a job 10, 15 years from now, maybe even 3 years from now, and helping them learn a new set of skills that they can use in this new workplace.
Okay, and I think we're also talking a lot about how the workforce is changing in terms of its heterogeneity, people with different kinds of backgrounds, people with different ways of thinking, people with different preferences with respect to work-life balance and how they want their workplace to look. How are companies dealing with this? I mean, it's almost as if the employer has to have a segmentation strategy that's as complex as the one that it has for its consumers.
I think that's a great way to think about it. Is we know that our workers are complex, different individuals, and yet we've had historically a strategy of just approaching them as homogenous, and that has been a major detriment to certain segments of the population, particularly women and those of ethnic or racial diversity. And so there's a number of ways to approach it. One is just helping the organization overall understand that it needs to care about this. It needs to understand these people and the contributions that they can bring. Second is to, as you mentioned, segment some parts of the workforce so that we can actually understand what should we be doing differently for these different populations. And then third is putting in a strategy to make sure that we're actually doing something with that insight.
And can data science and analytics play a role there in the way it does in marketing and helping to create recommendation engines, so to speak, for the employees, designing customized experiences to basically leverage the unique skills of each employee?
Yeah, it absolutely can. I think it actually starts with the candidate experience, and so understanding where our talent pools are, how to access them in diverse sources. There's been a trend over the last 15 years to reduce the number of places that we source people, and that has had the unintended consequence of actually reducing the diversity in our organizations as we reduce sources. So that would be, for instance, one example, and there's a whole lot of other ways that we can think about understanding our candidates. But then moving over to our employees, understanding certainly what people want from the workforce. We have an ability to understand, even through things like conjoint analysis, would more compensation be more valuable, or would more time off or flexible work schedule be more valuable? And using data to, number one, get that information from our employees, but then develop a more sophisticated approach to understanding what folks want and need can be pretty powerful to helping us engage people, appear as an organization responsive to them, and then enabling the organization ultimately to retain them better.
Now, since your time at Haas, you've had a number of experiences, and now you have your own firm, RedThread Consulting. What do you expect to be able to achieve with your own firm?
Yeah. A number of things. One of the things we wanted to do was to be much more collaborative, open, and transparent about data and analysis of the human capital space. There's been historically an approach where people kind of kept that information behind a paywall all the time, and we think that more heads on an idea are better than not, so we're trying to be much more open. Second is really to go to the things that are truly cutting edge. So something we didn't talk about, but I think is really important, is this question of what does leadership look like in an era of artificial intelligence. Nobody's talking about that. It's a huge opportunity to think through what are the implications of technology without being influenced by any sort of bias or need to sell some consulting or something like that. So, so being able to go after fresh ideas is a big part of it too.
Well, thank you, Stacia. Thanks for coming in.